Hello everybody, I don't normally drink soda, but I'm having some Pepsi here today in this video. The upside of my husband who likes soda, it's always there in the fridge. I'm not a huge soda drinker. I prefer just, I guess, like apple juice, fruit punch, Gatorade, water, flavored water, things like that. And lemonade, I love lemonade, and watermelon juice. It's just, I had that in the other video and that was super delicious. But the downside is the paper straws get caught down inside the container and they get all mushy and gross, and it's just a hot mess. I really am not a fan of it. Yeah. And my apologies that this video is going to be a little bit off center. I just want you guys to be able to see Miss Layla back there who's just chilling on the couch. So when I went to set this up, sorry, she was very, very cute and just cozy up there. So yeah, that's why it's a little off center. And just to fill you in on yesterday, because I'm not going to have a vlog for yesterday, the dogs are absolutely loving the TV in their bedroom. Dodger he sits in there either on the bed or on the floor and just he watches his shows or his movies, and when the music is on during bedtime, oh my goodness, not a sound out of them. As soon as bedtime hits and I put on the music on the TV, they are out like a light. We also ended up getting Greco pizza yesterday. My husband, he didn't mind it. He said he enjoyed it. Me, on the other hand, I was not a fan. Simply I do not mind spicy things, but I have like a tolerance when it comes to certain spicy stuff. It's weird. I like certain spicy items and then other spicy items I'm just not a fan of. The Greco pizza I was not a fan of. I just found the sauce that they used, it had some type of spice in it that just didn't match with my flavor palette at all. I found it preferably gross. I ended up having just cheese, pepperoni, tomato, green peppers on mine, and I did not like it. The garlic bread, it tasted like they used garlic powder on it with some cheese. It was extremely bland and dry, and it just tasted like an overwhelming amount of garlic powder. Now, they probably don't use garlic powder, but that's the type of taste I was getting. It just, I don't know. I was just not a fan of the pizza. Would I get it again? No. My husband, on the other hand, he didn't mind it and he said he would get it again. Me though, no. That was out. But yeah, yesterday the dogs just played, had some fun outside. I just relaxed mostly, did some housework, things of that nature. But anyway, let's get into this video. If you missed it on the other videos, I will certainly put a link down in the description below for you to get caught up. If you don't want to watch those ones, that's fine too. There just might be certain aspects that might be a little confusing for you if you missed out the other video, because I might be referring back to the other videos. I'm not 100% sure, because with these videos, I roll with it. None of my videos are ever scripted. Nothing's ever really wrote down. I just wing it. If you followed along in the other videos, I've now left what I call the nice home that we only lived in for a year, and we have moved again. I'm about to start grade 5. The next house we moved in, it was more of, I guess, like a community style house where all the houses pretty much look the exact same. They all look like gingerbread houses, just all in the neighborhood. That's what they were, that type of style. Family homes. And it was nice because there was a lot of kids in the area. It was not off a highway like our old house was. It was more quaint, and it was just a family-friendly neighborhood. This ended up being my first real experience with having anxiety. I ended up starting grade 5, and when my parents took me to the school, I had a complete and utter breakdown. We were stood outside my grade 5 classroom doorway, and I completely lost it, full of tears, absolutely like distraught. And I understand that could happen to kids, and a lot of kids experience that, but I felt an overwhelming amount of emotions, confusion. I just felt like, here we go again. I'm starting another school, new friends, new people. It was just extremely overwhelming for me, myself. It wasn't so much of a nervous feeling, it was more so of an overwhelming feeling of, I'm doing this all over again, I'm meeting all new people again, this is getting frustrating. What if we just move again now in a few months' time or in a year's time? It was a flood of emotions. And I just remember my mother and my stepdad just looking at me like, everything's gonna be okay and you're gonna be all right. But I knew deep down, I was like, this is not this is not a situation like every other time before where I cannot get comfortable. I cannot get to meet any like close friends. I'm not going to be able to warm up to anybody. It was just a lot. And it was frustrating because they just kept saying like, oh, you'll be okay and don't worry about it. The reality was I was extremely worried about it. I was extremely stressed about it and overwhelmed. So I collect myself after a moment of just completely crying and making a scene in the hallway, which I was so embarrassed about, but at the same time, I had absolutely no control over it. I just let go. Years of pretty much just frustration and just being stuck in another school that had no idea about my reading issues would have to take me on, and I'd have to hide it and keep it a secret that I struggled a lot to read. So I walked into the classroom, they left, and I started yet another new school. That house was really nice. I did start to make a few friends, but I also knew to keep myself kind of guarded. We did manage to stay in that same house though for at least a few years. I didn't graduate and finish all my schooling in that house because we did move again, but I did manage to get a few years out of it. Stability kind of started and normality kind of started, which was nice. And it wasn't even the last house. It was actually the townhouse. I thought that. Then we moved into the nice house, which I didn't really think that. The whole, hopefully there's stability and normality. The last house I thought it honestly was the townhouse. So I didn't even think about it in the last house. When we moved to this house, I didn't think it again, but I really wanted it. But I also knew not to set myself up for that because there was a high chance that we would up and move again. But I started meeting some friends, started hanging out more with other kids, actually started going to their houses because like I said in other videos, I was quite a social child. Even though I was steady moving and going from house to house, I was quite a social child that didn't mind interacting with kids. I just knew not to let them too close. Any friends that I did meet, they would tell me stuff about them. When I did live in this house, I guess I'll call it the friendly neighborhood house, I did meet some really close friends who would really open up to me, tell me a lot of personal things about them. I had a friend who she wasn't my best friend, but she was my closest friend. And she would tell me about how she suffered from an eating disorder, and I tried to help her, but she would never really know anything about me. She didn't even know, honestly. I think it was years later I told her, because she didn't know that was my stepdad and it was my mom. He wasn't my biological dad. She didn't know that my youngest brother wasn't actually my full blood brother. He was a half brother, even though I never considered that because like I said in another video, a brother is a brother to me, a sister is a sister, things of that nature. I wouldn't really let people in. I wouldn't let people know what was going on in my life, where I came from. Nothing. Nobody knew about my struggles with reading. Nobody knew that I lived in a shelter. Nobody knew that my parents had a pretty nasty divorce. I was very safeguarded. I was very protected, and I was very closed off from anybody. But it seemed like people gravitated to telling me stuff. It was kind of a blessing and a curse because I felt very humbled and honored that I would have people who I didn't really know all that well come into my life and feel like they could open up like that, but I could not, no, I couldn't do it in return at all. A few friends, like I said, I did get close with. None of them did I ever consider a best friend. Like I said, there was one girl who I would sit on the bus, I'd go to her house. She literally just lived a few houses up from me, and I became extremely close with her, but I never did sadly consider her a best friend. I think there were at times she did consider me one. I could be wrong, but I think she did. But I never returned that gesture. And like I said, I became close with her, but she never came to that. It never came to that point where she became my absolute best friend that I could confide in. Because to me, a best friend is someone you can absolutely confide in anything, trust with anything. She was not there. She was close, but she was not there. No, I used to hang out with her a lot. There were other kids in the neighborhood I would hang out with a lot. Grade 5, I don't know how I did it, even with the other grades. But grade 5, I really don't know how I managed to get through with anybody not catching on that I still was struggling to read. Now at this point, I was, and I will admit, I was starting to pick up small words like the, and, I, you, he, she, we, things like that. I could pick those words up. But you give me a large word and I absolutely struggled. I would really struggle. And I'll get more into my whole reading and how I got through the system, the school system. I'll do that in another video. I want to keep this about us in this house and moving and stuff. But yeah, I don't know how I managed. And there was a friend in that class that I was quite close with. And it was only for a year. I don't know what happened, but after that year, when I then went into grade 6, I decided to take French immersion, thinking that maybe if I switch languages, I would be able to get through this a lot easier, because nobody understood the amount of struggling I did. I'd go home every day, either not do the homework assigned because I just struggled way too much and got too frustrated with it, or what I'd do is I'd sit down for hours and hours and hours, like I said in another video, with a dictionary that I had that had pictures and the word broke down, and the majority of dictionaries had the word broke down anyway, with like a brief description that I had to take my time to try to understand and comprehend what it was saying. It was a lot. Like, no one understood. Me doing homework and assignments or anything like that was a lot. Tests and quizzes, I don't know how I managed. I would always try and bank, please, can you give it like multiple choices? I was like, Sky, you couldn't, honestly, I was absolutely phenomenal when it came to multiple choice tests, because with the sentences that were given, I'd try to break it down as best I could with words I recognized, or I just really take my time and just try to break them down with, you know how you cover some of it up with your finger, try to get that word and so on. I do that. It'd take me a lot longer than the average person to do tests, but that was my way of being able to do it. And just having the multiple choice there with the different words, I was kind of able, once I read the question, to kind of comprehend which answer. But if it was like, oh, you have to fill all this out type deal, oh my goodness. That was so stressful and so anxiety driven, because I'd be there steady, like, okay, trying to pick out words in the question to put in it. I'd be flipping back through the test or the exam as I got older, trying to find, it was a hot mess. But I got through it. But I just figured if I switched to French and just did French class, things would get easier. And I absolutely loved it, because when I switched to French in grade 6, the program that I did, the school was just starting to implement it. It was kind of new where we lived in having French, just a French speaking class in the school. It was like we were the trial kids, I guess, for it. So I was one of the kids that got selected to actually do it because I put my name in for it. And when I got into that class, oh boy, I completely bombed. Now, when we first started it, I was doing really good, because it was like doing the A, B, C, D, U, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, that type of stuff. And it was just basic, like, il, elle, je, tu, like, easy stuff. And I was like, yes. I was hoping it'd be like it the whole time. No, sir. Then as the months went on, it became more and more difficult for me, because I couldn't read basic words and they were trying to get you to do sentences. Hi, Ariel. Trying to get you to do sentences and stuff. I was like, oh no. And it just went downhill. So when grade 7 came, I was like, yeah, switch me back to the English speaking class, because I can't handle this. And we were still living in that house. I was still hanging out with those same group of friends. It was nice, and just Halloweens were nice, and I was actually having like a good solid group of friends that I honestly thought, oh, maybe, because at this time when I got to grade 7 and we switched from the elementary school to the junior high, yes, I finally made it to junior high in a school with some friends that I went to a few years with from grade 5 and 6 to now 7. I was like, yes, okay, maybe these are the people. now at this point, I was like, maybe these are the people I'm actually going to graduate with and move on with my life. You know how you get when you're a kid. But I noticed things were starting to shift in the house and change. And I just remember starting to brace myself like, oh no, here we go. And it wasn't in grade 7, but I knew near the end of grade 7 it was happening because my parents were discussing it more and more. But it was just really frustrating because, like I said, I was actually having some friends I enjoyed being around. I was just starting grade 8. I wasn't long into the school year, and our house went up on the market. And I was like, oh, here we go again. But when the house went up on the market, I thought, okay, maybe it'll be a few weeks, you know, before anything. But no, it was like literally like a week or something. The house was on the market, it was sold. We were packing our stuff and getting ready to move. And I was in school when we were getting ready to move. Had no idea. I wasn't even told that a moving day was coming or we were about to move. I just remember my mother coming to the school, signing me out and telling me we were about to move. And then she said, oh, did you want to go back in and get anything, or you want to see your friends? Honestly, no joke, I left everything there. I had my knapsack, that was it. Everything that was in my locker stayed. Didn't even tell my friends. They had no idea I was moving. But the crazy thing was, when we moved pretty much in between the old house, the nice house that I lived at, and the family house. We were smack dab in another, but because of where the house was placed, I had to go to a different school again. But this school ended up being with some of the people I went to school with in the nice house before the family house. And it was just like, what is going on with my life? I was so I ended up starting this school, and there were a lot of kids that weren't from the nice house, but there were some I did recognize, but I acted like I didn't. This was weird, and I don't know why I did this, but I acted like I didn't know them or who they were, and just went on pretty much the rest of those school days in that house and in those schools, not knowing who they were. Now, I think they kind of knew who I was, but I acted like I didn't know who they were. Don't know why. And just started up again and just started meeting new people and new friends from that school, who again, I ended up getting friends, but never close friends. But yeah, like I said, none of my friends from the family house knew I was up and leaving. Yeah, my mom just signed us out. I went out, I hopped in the car. She asked me, did I want to go in and get anything? Did I want to go say bye to anybody? And I was just like, no, let's go. And that was it. Just because I was like, why am I going to set myself up like that? No, I'm not going to do that to myself. But when I did move, some friends, not all of them, but some friends from the family house, I did manage to, for a while, it didn't last for all the time I was in the new house that we were now in, but I did for a few years still continue to try and keep in contact with those friends, or at least some of them. It was hard and challenging because where I was at another school, and I just also felt like I didn't want to let them too close in either, because what if I up and moved again, and it was just going to be overwhelming and confusing, and but yeah, that was the family house. And there were a lot of great memories in that family house. There were, but no, like I said, it's so frustrating. I literally felt like a military child because of how much we were up and moving, and just nothing was staying the same. At that point, if they came to me and said we were going to move again, I honestly wouldn't be surprised or shocked. And I was at the point, I just didn't even care anymore, because it was something I just expected to happen now. I didn't expect at this next house that we were in that I'd graduate with the same group of people, but I guess I'm gonna call this the final house. That's the one I moved in, and I was there from the middle of grade 8, and that's where I graduated. So I was at least able to get from the middle of grade 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 there. So that was the longest house we were in, and the longest house I was in and stayed in. But it was weird because when we were in that house, the group of friends I'd hang out with from year to year seemed to always shift and change a bit. I never would really stay with the same group of friends. I'd almost change it up from year to year. I'd have a few that I'd still hang around with, but they never stayed the same. I'd always change it up. Don't know why, but it's like I didn't want to let, I guess this might be good for anyone who's a therapist out there. Like my life story, oh my God, a therapist would have a field day with. But I don't know, I guess personally what I believe why I did it was because I just was so used to not letting people in that I didn't want to let them in out of the fear that they were just going to disappear and go anyway. So I'd transition and change out those friends from year to year. And like I said, I'd probably keep 1 or 2 from the previous year on to the next year. But when we moved into that final house, I did from grade 8 to grade 9, some of the friends would shift. I had some the same, but they would shift. From grade 9 to 10, again, it would happen, 10 to 11, and then 11 to 12, especially 11 to 12. That was a big, oh my goodness, that was a hot mess of a year, and something I'd leave for another video, but but yeah, like I said, friends from year to year would never really stay the same. And all I can think looking back now, from what I know now, and just growing as a person, I was just scared to death that they were only going to disappear. The potential of us moving and those friends being gone and me letting them in scared me way too much. So I wouldn't let anybody in, and I would just switch up the people I hung with, because I was like, okay, am I starting to get a little too close to you as a friend? Okay, you're gone. Time to move on. So yeah, because I do remember, and I do recall this, there was this person and we were walking down a trail. It was like an old railway track. The trains used to go down there, but we don't have trains here anymore. That's where they used to go. And now it just became like a walking trail. And I was walking down there with her, and I started to open up and talk to her and tell her certain things about my family. And no joke, I'm pretty sure like a few weeks after that conversation, I completely like shut her out and she was done with. And then I just moved on and I started hanging out with other people. I think I still talk to her. I still would talk to her every now and then in school, but I don't think I ever hung out with her outside of school after that. But no, I was never one to really let people in. And the only thing I can think of was just out of fear of letting someone in meant that they'd end up just going away, because I seen it happen to my biological dad, his parents, my grandparents. I seen it happen to them and all his side of the family. I seen it happen to members of my mother's side of the family and my stepdad's side of the family. I seen it happen to friends repeatedly over and over again because of all the moving and the schools I had to go to. It was just a lot for a kid. And even graduating grade 12 at the age I was of 17 years old, I was still a kid, 17 or 18, because I had to, as some of you, if you watch the older videos, I ended up getting held back in grade 1. But yeah, I was roughly in that age when I graduated so many years ago. But it was a lot. It was a lot of people coming in and out of my life constantly. And I don't know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll have another video hopefully again real soon. Fingers crossed tomorrow, if not the next day. All right, well,